Hello and welcome to a new episode of Photography Behind the Scenes. Today, or should I better say tonight, I'm out in the fog again. I got surprised actually by this foggy night and spontaneously reacted to these conditions and came out. As usual, I was on the lookout for some interesting scenes, some interesting light, and here I found my first scene. For this session, I decided I want to experiment a little and try out an idea I had. Here are the first three photos I got from this scene. I started off with a classic, normal you might say, picture of the scene, and I think it's cool. I'm enjoying this mixture of light sources and colours, and overall the composition pulls me in pretty nicely with the light focusing in the middle and the path going down that way. Here's the second version, with me walking through the frame. While I think having a person often makes the photograph better, I find this one didn't really work out. My position and pose don't add to the composition very nicely. And then here is the experimental one. So the technique I was trying out is to make a long exposure, and after about half the time I'd pan the camera to get this sideways movement in the photograph. The motion is very clearly visible in the lights here, however the rest of the photo looks quite normal, I guess. I like the added abstraction here, but it's not yet quite what I was aiming to do. Then, for my next photo, I simply turned around and composed a shot of this path that crosses the field and has a bunch of lamps lined up alongside it. Again, I first got a normal photo and then tried variations of the experimental technique. This time, I didn't only do the clean panning shot, but also a pretty uncontrolled move by lightly kicking one of the tripod's legs. Such a weird technique. Actually looks kind of cool though. Here's the normal photo, which is pretty decent I think. I like the scene it pictures. And then this is the shot with the panning, and in this one the technique is closer to what I was going for. If you look at the grey box on the left, for example, you can see how its shape is now stretched, and also the ground is looking stretched and almost brushed. And this is the effect I was hoping to achieve. I wanted to give the photo this texture that would remind of a painting and a painting's brush strokes. I enjoy how the grass and the box look in this one, and I think the lamps at the back are also pretty interesting. They feel a little mysterious, or maybe surreal. The lamp closest to the camera, however, didn't come out so nicely in my opinion. It's just a bit too big, which I'm not feeling too sure about. And then here is the last version with the kicking technique. So you can see straight away that my desired brush texture did not come out here. Apart from the lights, the photo looks pretty normal actually. The lights, however, turn out really interesting I think. I enjoy this element of uncontrollability that the lights add to the photo. The lines painted by them here are totally unique and in no way accurately replicable, I would argue, which makes this version kind of special in that sense. So maybe this photo would work best if these lights were combined with the bottom of the last photo. Here's a composite I made that combines the two, and the photo really has something special to it. I like it. So tonight is a really foggy night, which is unusual because I'm not used to having foggy nights in January, and therefore it's also really cold. I mean, I'm used to having about 6 degrees in the foggy nights, but today it's -2 degrees, so I'm running around with the big gloves. And yeah, let's see what else we can find. Today I'm trying a little something new, as you might have already noticed. I'm trying this new technique in which I purposely shake the camera so that we get this low shutter speed effect, which I'm assuming will make the whole image look a bit more, well, I'd say painterly, because you can see things that look a bit like paintbrushes. Paint or brush strokes, maybe that's the right word to describe it. I mean, I don't even know if it's going to work, so we'll see in post, but that's what I'm trying out today. Then I continued my walk for a little while and eventually came to this road where I decided that this might be a scene worth shooting, and indeed, I could find a composition to picture the scene here. I was intrigued by the reflections of the lamps on the wet road. Here is the first of the two photos that worked. This one is the simple panning version, and I like what is happening here. The lights are again the obvious effect, and they're alright, but what I find more pleasing actually is the middle of the photo, where we get these soft textures that run across the photo and add something that makes it unique again. It's very soft, not as intrusive as the lights, and I think it does have the character of a brush stroke. Here's a different version, and I don't like this one as much as the first one, but I still wanted to show you because it's interesting. The blur effect looks a bit more unintentional here, which I don't think is a good thing, however it does evoke something quite unique in me when staring at it. It seems quite impressionistic and lets me take in the photograph as a whole, as an overall mood, not as a picture with details to look at. Then I continued my walk through the neighborhood on the lookout for anything interesting, and I found a house that initially caught my attention due to the lighting, because the street lamp added a lot of dimension to the shape of the house. I composed a shot and tried multiple variations of the slow shutter technique. Here is version 1, the normal version, which I think is okay, but overall not so interesting. Then here is version 2, and it's getting better. What I like here is that the artifacts from the panning look rather controlled because they're pretty directional, and I think this one really does have a brushstroke look. Here too, I feel like this photo is not one to be looked at in detail, but instead taken in as an impression, as a whole. There's one point I feel slightly pulled to, and that is the window in the middle. While the entire photo is a blur, the window is still pretty clearly visible, and my eyes seem to hold onto that window and let the rest of the photo pass through and create a feeling of a fleeting memory. Then here's another version which I want to show you because it doesn't work. The blur here lacks any direction, as is easily spotted when looking at the blue light. Additionally, the photograph overall is sharper, and this balance between abstract blur and clear subjects now seems to lean over too far to the clear side, which disables the impressionistic character of the photo to develop. And then lastly, I got this version, which is like the last one but with direction. However, here too, it's still overall too sharp and too clear, I find. Next, I moved closer to the house and decided to shoot the front garden because I liked the various items the owners had standing around here. This is the result, and unfortunately I think this didn't really work. However, I can't tell why. The blur is pretty and the lighting is interesting. I like how the light reflects on the plastic surfaces. But for some reason, I don't feel this photo. Maybe this composition and the technique don't go well together? I don't know. Then I walked on for quite a while actually without finding anything until I came to this bridge. Here I enjoyed the perspective from up here looking down at the road. I tried out a couple compositions and found something that might work. Here's the result. I think this turned out really cool. I like the overall atmosphere apart from the blur now. Just in general, the fog enhances this view nicely, and I enjoy the unusual perspective from up on this bridge. The white van effectively acts as a subject and point of interest. I'm glad that there were no other cars parked here, which allows the focus to fully concentrate on the van. And now, concerning the blur technique, I think it worked out pretty nicely. The path of the light has a good length, I find. It's long, but not overly long, and it only takes up a small space of the entire frame's width. I think this photo could, however, need just a little bit more blur in total, which I got in a second version. The bushes and the road have become softer in this one, which adds again to the unclear impressionistic character of the scene. However, here the path of the light is now too long, which takes up too much space, hence too much attention, for my taste at least. So I guess the perfect photo would be the mixture again, with the best of both versions. After that, I began to make my way back to where I started, but took a different route in the hope of finding some more photos. As I came to a block of houses, I spotted a little path that led into the area and thought this could be a decent photograph. Here's the result, and I think it's overall quite nice, but it also has room for improvement. So in total, I think the scene itself is interesting. I like the windows on the left that have this warm, cozy feeling, and also the covered bike on the right. The bike is a slightly abstract detail, but I find it really adds another intriguing element so that the photograph isn't solely focused to the middle and the windows. Something I'm lesser fond of, however, is the enormous light at the top. It's just too big and seems a bit distracting. The blur effect in this one, unfortunately, is concentrated on mostly just the lights and not the entire scene, which is what I miss here. At the time of shooting, this technique was a first-time thing for me, so when I looked at the photos on the camera screen, I couldn't yet determine if I liked what I saw and if there was anything I would like to change. But now, after further reflection, I know better for next time. Then next up, I want to show you the last photograph of the evening, but before that, I want to give my dear sponsor a quick shout out. Big thank you to Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community for learning, well, skills obviously. They have a platform with thousands of classes for creative people, so this goes from filmmaking, illustration, business, all the way to photography. So Skillshare is basically a curated collection of video classes in which a teacher shares their knowledge. Because it's specifically laid out for efficient learning, the classes are neatly organized and there are of course no ads, and additionally they are constantly adding new classes to the collection. A class I can personally recommend is this product photography class by Rachel Gloder and Daniel Inskeep. While product photography is not my typical lane of work, I always enjoy the slightly unconventional and creative approach Rachel and Daniel have in their YouTube videos, and this class here is no exception. So the people from Skillshare have created a link for me to share with you, with which the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So if you think this sounds interesting, I would much appreciate you using my link because that lets Skillshare know that you're from this community and that I'm doing a good job. Now then, let me show you the last photo. I continued walking back towards my starting point, and as I was passing a small field, I spotted a house on the other side, which I thought could potentially be an interesting subject. Unfortunately, due to missing street lamps, the scene was extremely dark, so in the GoPro footage you can barely see what I was aiming to shoot. Basically, I was pointing the camera at a house and you can see the two glowing windows in the distance. Here's the shot. Let me start with an appreciation for the composition and the scene in general, which I really enjoy. I love how this house is surrounded by these tree silhouettes, which are visible thanks to this glow that is coming from behind. I also think that the two bright windows are what makes this house photography worthy. It gives the house character and sets the subject. The blurring technique worked out alright, I'd say. I like how it affected the windows, however, apart from that, it sadly didn't really do much. There is a soft light sweeping across the roof I see, but other than that, there's not much going on. I also got a second version, and I don't remember what it was, but something, maybe a cyclist, passed on the left side of the photo, resulting in this light trail, which I decided to color in post to make it purple, which I find very fitting for this photo, and it makes the picture feel a little mysterious. So that was the last photograph I got that night, and I decided to head home and warm my freezing hands. This session was interesting, definitely, and I would say that it was quite a success, and I think I was able to get a few that worked out pretty well. I think my favorite is this one of the van. Let me know what you think about this new technique and if there's any photo in particular that you liked. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, I'd appreciate a like, consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.